Okay, this is a boomer here talking about what happened to the Democratic Party. I was born in the 60s, so I remember a time when people were still talking about Robert F. Kennedy. He was the peacemaker, he was the anti war guy. When I was growing up, the Democrat Party represented the unions, firefighters, policemen, manufacturing guys. Every Most people voted for the Democrats. The Republicans were the party of the rich. They were always trying to push tax cuts for the rich. And they were the party of the wars, as I remember. I remember Bush and Cheney starting that war in Afghanistan and Iraq for no reason, how they lied to us. And Obama, at the time when he was a senator, said we should not go into Iraq. So always I remember the Republicans as being like the warmongers, representing the rich people, doing all these tax cuts. And the Democrats were the party for us, the people. I remember Bernie Sanders. I went to one of his rallies when he was talking about Medicare for all. And what happened? What happened to the Democratic Party? I'll tell you what happened. They stopped standing for anything. They stand for nothing. Case in point, I already made videos about Kamala, but when you hear her talk, there's nothing there. There's no purpose. There's no passion for anything. All that money she raised, and she's still in debt because she was relying on ads. There was no inner purpose. But the real reason I want to make this video was when I read yesterday that the Harris campaign paid Oprah Winfrey $1 million for that interview. Let's go, we're strong. Now, Oprah is denying that she personally got any money, that it was just her production company that got the money. But really, I'm going to just leave that there because why would her production company need that money? She's a freaking billionaire because she doesn't stand for anything. Oprah doesn't stand for anything except making a buck. And Kamala, because she stood for nothing, couldn't bring out people who stood for anything. Because she stood for nothing, she couldn't get people to want to give her their free time. I'm just some random working woman in an apartment, okay? I don't even own a house. And I managed to pull enough money together to go to 2 fundraising events for RFK Jr. I went to 2 of his fundraisers. Now, they were not as expensive as like the Democrat Republican fundraisers, but it was a splurge for me because I believed in his candidacy. I really was passionate about the no more wars, at least the one in Ukraine, and the censoring of free speech and reforming the healthcare system and stopping with these ridiculous. I was so mad about these COVID mandates and the lockdown and the forced injections. I was so mad for something with a death rate of 0.1%. I was so mad at the media lying to us. I was like mad, so I was really passionate about it. When people are passionate, they'll pour their heart and soul into it, like people did volunteering for the Bernie Sanders campaign. They had a passion for helping the working class, helping the people. Like I'm passionate right now about this topic and about ending the wars and reforming education and parenting. Like there's some things I'm very passionate about. You don't have to pay me to be passionate, but Kamala there was no passion. So she had to pay to be on all these shows, whereas Donald Trump went on Joe Rogan and got 3 free hours of publicity. I doubt that he had to pay Joe Rogan. I doubt that he was paid to be on there. I doubt it. I don't know. I think Joe Rogan just has people on because people want to listen and he makes money off the listeners. Now, why did Kamala have to pay all these people, all these celebrities that she had to pay? Because they didn't support her because they were passionate for her cause or they stood for her cause, because she had no cause. She had no cause. Her only cause was, I want to be president. I can put people away with a stroke of my pen. And I don't blame her for liking the spotlight or liking the power. It's very intoxicating. I will tell you, I can just imagine to be so wanted and beloved and to hobnob with the rich and the wealthy. Like, it's very intoxicating. It's like a drug. You lose your touch with, your feet don't hit the floor anymore because you're up in the clouds. I don't blame her, but the Democrat Party really went awry when they stopped having a cause and a mission. And that's what I made a video about before with the populist vote. The Democrats lost touch with the populist vote. Now, a lot of Republicans hate Donald Trump because he is against the status quo and the deep state. Mitch McConnell is already trying to find a way to put somebody in that will thwart anything that Trump might want to do. Now, I'm not saying Trump is the savior. I'm still skeptical. I'm hopeful and skeptical. But Trump appealed to the populists. Kind of like the MAGA movement reminds me of the Tea Party movement. If you guys remember the Tea Party movement. Now, I'm not a journalist. I'm not like a historian. I don't have all my years right and my facts right. And that's why I like to listen to people like Savvy Sabs, who has followed all this in great detail. Megyn Kelly. Like, there's so many people that know all the details. I'm just kind of giving you a general flavor of the culture as I remember it. And I remember the Tea Party movement. They were like a grassroots movement. The Republican Party made room for it, but they didn't want them to have power. And the Republican Party did not want Trump to have power either, because he goes against the deep state. There are a lot of secrecies in the government, like the CIA with a secret budget, and the assassination attempt that the FBI is still not investigating. We know they do covert operations. They even do them on US citizens. So these are all things where they were even look at the coup that they did on Biden. They completely thwarted the democratic process for the people. They decide who they install. The people really like Bernie Sanders. He stood for the people. He was passionate, very passionate about the people, ending the wars, Medicare for all. And they try to gaslight us that this is not possible. It certainly is possible. They do it in Europe. It certainly is possible. They try to gaslight you that that would be like socialism and it's bad. Like taking care of our people is bad. Investing money into our country is bad. They do all this gaslighting. That's another thing the Democratic Party has done, because they own all the media and they've lied to us year after year after year. That's just another thing they've done wrong. I'm going to make a video later on in a few weeks about how I think that the cultural extremism of the Democratic Party, where they've infiltrated our education system, the media, with their woke agenda, their trans agenda, is one of the factors that I think has led to the incel community and men feeling lost. Because from the time a young man goes to school as a little boy, he is sidelined for being a man by these angry feminist teachers in the education system. They've taken away recess. They've told boys they can't play with sticks on the playground. They make school very boring. The universities have become activists for the woke agenda, which makes a real man not even want to go to college unless a man has like a deep passion for a certain degree. Like, I want to be an economist, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer. They don't want to be there. You could show me two men. You can show me Tim Walz and the trucker from Canada, the lumberjack. And I can tell you who's a Democrat and who's a Republican. Because the Republican guy is going to look like a man. And the Democrat guy is going to look like a wuss, like a sissy. And I say that with the full meaning of a man who has lost his masculine energy, his assertiveness, and his courage, because he lives in a liberal state and he's trying to be woke and he's lost his way. And I think a lot of men have lost their way because of all this cultural infiltration that the extreme left of the Democratic Party has done. That's what I think. And some of the things that happen in society that are not really talked about, people feel. For 20 years now, people have been wondering what is happening with men. Men are so lonely, men are not going to college, men have checked out. I think that this woke agenda and this division has gradually seeped in, starting with the Department of Education, starting with schools, the feminists, and different institutions pandering to male bashing. The Democrat Party has really contributed to that with their trans ideology and the lockdown, the tyrannical lockdown. And if you just look how the blue states versus the red states handled the pandemic. I'm in California. We had a 2-year lockdown. 2 years. Now, if you live in a red state, you may not realize this, but California men had their dicks cut off pretty much. They became compliant little. They stopped going to the gym. That was all closed. They wore their little face diapers, and they were compliant little sissy boys. I like a real man. I will tell you, I like a real man. And the real men left California when they could. Joe Rogan left California. That's just one example. The whole trans agenda, now they're trying to sexualize our children, changing their gender without the parental knowledge. And all this was done with the blessings of the Democrat Party. They tried to separate families. They tried to push down mothering, fathering, families. I have to put it all together into how they contributed to the demise of the family. The demise of the family, and I'm not like, I am pro-abortion and all of that, but throughout history, people have found meaning in their relationships, in their family life. And the Democrat Party tried to, through their extreme pandering to the far left, squash all of that. You know, all these women now think it's cool to not get married, to not have children. Like, where did that come from? I think the Democratic Party encouraged all of that. There are some very extreme people who kind of kidnapped the party. I don't, if even look at Hollywood. Okay, let's look at the movies. I remember watching Westerns growing up. Let's see what I watch. I don't know, this will tell my age. Bonanza. And shows in which men were men, Leave It to Beaver. And I remember the first show in which men were ridiculed, and that was Leave It to Raymond. And I was shocked by how this woman was speaking to her husband and how he was just this bumbling fool. Leave It to Raymond, and then Married with Children. I mean, they were kind of funny, but I remember feeling like that started seeping into our culture. All these movies, and then the female hero. I mean, it's fine that Angelina Jolie wants to go around with guns, but real women are not like that. Real women are not going out there trying to fight and be soldiers. They started portraying women as like being the men. They started having the men be like bumbling fools controlled by the women. in all of Hollywood, because Hollywood was part of this infiltration, this agenda that certain people had. And they joined the Democratic Party, and they found a voice, and they found a welcoming place, because the party stopped being for the working class, and they switched towards being for these elites with their ideological agenda. These elites, now why would these elites join the Democrat Party? For decades, I didn't understand it. I'm like, you're a rich Hollywood actor. Usually rich people want to be a Republican. They want their taxes cut. Why are these people Democrats? And now, today I get it. Because they're in some rich bubble. They started contributing to the party. They started making sure that the party gave them tax cuts also. That the party was no longer aligned with the populace, with the people. The party started abandoning the unions, the people, the healthcare for all, the education, and they started infiltrating with these ideologies that these rich people have, who are now all turning out to be pedophiles. And who knows what they do. There are stories circulating about them having weird ritual practices to extend their life. I don't know if any of that is true. I'm not going to go there. But they're rich ideologues, and they're pushing a trans agenda, a woke agenda, man-hating agenda, child-hating agenda. And they've infiltrated the party. That's what I think. And that has had tremendous negative consequences, especially the movies, because everybody watches these movies. How does a little boy feel when he's watching a movie and the man is a bumbling idiot and the woman is the one in charge? Like, how? It doesn't even allow his manhood to blossom. Okay? They took the male-only spaces out. Okay, Boy Scouts is gone. It now has girls in there too. They have urbanized boys. Boys need to be outside. They need to play. They need to tumble. They need to be able to fight with their sticks. They need to be in Boy Scouts. If they don't have a father, they need to be in spaces where they can learn to make a campfire, find their place out in the woods. Came across a bunch of YouTube videos the other day. There are entire channels dedicated to like how to build a fire when you have a lighter that doesn't work. Like, I was fascinated. How to build a knot, how to make a knot. But a little boy's fascination with that would be so strong. They want to be out in the wilderness. They want to challenge themselves. And the Department of Education and the movies, that's where they infiltrated. I'm not saying it was like a CIA operation. It just kind of was allowed to happen. And it just killed the desire of little boys to be who they want to be. So unless a boy had a very strong inner calling or was raised to value his masculinity like the way I raised my boys, and had a strong father like my boys had, they're lost. They're lost because the social climate that was encouraged by the Democratic Party has destroyed that manhood. They've destroyed it. Look at Tim Walz. Does he look like a man to you? Joe Biden, this decrepit, I'm sorry, he's old, he's decrepit, he's weak. He needs to be in a caretaking. He looks like he needs caretaking. He's not a symbol of masculinity and strength. The Democratic Party has pushed out all symbols of masculinity and strength. Gone. Their idea of a man is Tim Walz, Joe Biden. Now, they're valuable souls. I don't mean to disparage them, but as symbols of masculinity, they're a negative 10. Look at Vance, very masculine. Trump, very masculine. Now I'm even wondering if the thing with Andrew Tate, if he really did all those things. I don't know. I think he did. I shouldn't even go there. But The Democrat Party abandoned the everyday person. It got taken over by ideologues. And that's the problem. Now, I'm not saying the Republican Party is any better. They, and under Trump, will continue to do tax cuts for the rich, fund foreign wars. But I'm telling you, these foreign wars are weakening us. Russia, okay, whatever you heard about Russia from the media is a lie, because they have been lying. That's another thing. The media was once an independent voice with foreign correspondents. I remember when there were foreign correspondents reporting from other countries about what they saw on the ground. That is gone. They don't have the money to do it anymore. They've become activists. Fox News is an activist channel for the Republican Party. And the other ones, including all the newspapers, are activists for the Democratic Party, which has been overtaken by ideologues. So you're hearing a lot of propaganda. Fortunately, we have free speech. You can follow independent journalists, high-quality journalists who left the mainstream media and went independent and are actually reporting what's going on. Kim Iversen, the Duran Report, Judge Napolitano, Dialogue Works, where actual former intelligence officers and military officers are giving their perspective, actually truth, which actually feels like truth. From the beginning, I said, Ukraine is going to lose against Russia. Russia is not trying to take over Europe. But the mainstream media fed a bunch of stuff, and people were, virtue signaling. I'm for Ukraine. Did you even know why Russia invaded Ukraine? It was a territorial dispute. When the Soviet Union took down the wall in Germany, and I'm from Germany, I remember the wall, the US promised Russia, we will never take NATO past Germany if you agree to take down the wall. But our word means nothing, because the people who make the word can break the word. That's another problem in this country. People have stopped having certain behaviors like keeping our word. Because again, this is infiltration from the top down. They lie to you. The media lies to you, and the president lies to you from the pulpit. They lie to you about why we went to war in Iraq and Afghanistan. Scott Ritter, the former weapons inspector, said there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. I think he got fired over that. That's not what they wanted to hear. And a real president faces the nation and says, this is why we're fighting this war. This is why we're going to war against Russia. The US is in war against Russia and Ukraine. Do not be misled. It's US intelligence, US weapons, US funding, US mercenaries. And because Russia is so constrained, they are not retaliating as the US would have retaliated. So they lied to us. The president never went on there. And then they just start these wars quietly. And who's fighting these wars? The poor men. The men who can't get an education from the poor parts of the country are sent out to war. It's not Nancy Pelosi's son that's fighting in the war, or Mitch McConnell's son. And if they do have children in the military, they're not on the battlefield, okay? I can guarantee you that. Because these wars are not for our existential threat. They're for empire building, and they're done in the dark of night with no president. I want to hear Biden get on the frickin' White House, Oval Office, or wherever they do their talks, the way I'm talking to you now, and say, this is what we're fighting for in Ukraine, and not lie. But they all lie. He doesn't say anything. He's an old, decrepit guy that should be in a wheelchair somewhere in a nursing home on the beach. And so men don't have a good role model. That's another thing that's missing. Men don't have a good role model in our government, in the media, because they can tell it's lies. Like, where are the male role models for men? They're not in the movies. They're not in the administration. They're not in education. It's all led by feminists. woke ideologues. So there's been a war on men that the Democrats have encouraged. Look at Oprah Winfrey. She's never been married. She's never had children. Now, there's a difference between women who cannot have children, like Tulsi Gabbard, who talked about how all of her IVF treatments failed, and women who don't want children. Women who don't want children are very suspect to me. They're missing, a woman who's missing her mothering instinct is very suspect. There's something disturbing about a man who doesn't want to be a father and a woman who doesn't want to be a mother. And I think a lot of that has been amplified through the Democratic messaging, where some people who were maybe on the edge were pushed the other way because of the cultural messaging that men were bumbling idiots and women were these angry equals to men. It's made a lot of people not even want to do that. It's almost like, not like a special operation, like a psych ops, but remember how they scared us during COVID? If you don't get this vaccine, if you don't get this injection, you're going to kill grandma. They do the same kind of thing around families and children, you know, and then they lie. So they get on TV and they lie. Russia wanted to be part of the EU, part of NATO, and they kept being kicked out because the US had a long-standing agenda to try to have war with Russia. Now we have war with Russia and we're losing our ass. They don't tell you that on the news, but I follow the reports, geopolitical analysts on YouTube. And every once in a while, even the Washington Post will leak out that they're losing in Ukraine. Yes, they're losing. They try to tell you that Russia wants to take over Europe. Are you fucking kidding me? On what planet? Russia has something like 600,000 or 700,000 military, and they're just trying to take the western part of Ukraine. They would need 20 million people to take over Europe. They don't have that, nor do they want that. They try to paint Iran as our enemy. Iran has been a peaceful country for at least the 18th century. They haven't started any wars, and they don't want any wars. They actually have a defensive, Russia, Iran, China, they actually have a defense industry, defending against US invasion. The US has an offense industry, offense. And all this money spent on offense is money that is energy and money that is neglecting people here at home. Now, what would I do to... So a populist candidate has to distance itself from all these people. And that's why all these people had to be paid. Getting back to my main point of this video, that's why all these people had to be paid to endorse Kamala, because she stands for nothing. And these people can't support her because she doesn't ignite any passion in them. So the only people that vote for Kamala are people who are extreme ideologues, because they're on for the trans agenda, or they believe Donald Trump is a threat to democracy because that's what they're told on the news, which is lying to us a lot, I now realize. Or they've always been a Democrat, so, you know, she lost badly because she stood for nothing. They've abandoned the people. Like I said, the Democrat Party used to be for the people, and now they've just become... Like, what did you stand for? Did you stand for anything? Even Obama stood for nothing. I saw through his charade when it was happening. Obama stood for nothing. He just liked to hear himself talk. He's charming, but his voice always annoyed me. So did Bush. So does some people. Their voices, listening to them is so annoying. I think I pick up on their fakeness. Like Gavin Newsom, when I hear him talk, it's that cadence, that fake cadence. Obama has it, Newsom has it. Nancy Pelosi, her lies just give me the creeps. But certain people, I like to listen to some of these shows like Judge Napolitano or the Duran Report, because these are actual men talking like men, like it feels authentic. I like listening to Dave Smith and the gentleman that's on his show. I think they're really good. You can just feel their authentic voice, and they're not like all angry. Some of these, I just think these woke ideologues have infiltrated our culture, and they shouldn't be, and that has led to a decline in the importance of men, the importance of families, the importance of education. And so some of the fabric of society seems like it's falling apart, like especially here in California, where people don't feel like they have to keep their word. Like certain things that were always considered important, courage, keeping your word, honor, standing for something, having some values, something that you believe in. It seems like, and California is a very liberal state. It's like, oh, whatever, just feel good, whatever goes. People are not enchanted by that. That's why people dropped out. That's what I think. And that's why Kamala had to pay people. These people stand for nothing except fame and power. Now, it remains to be seen if Donald Trump will indeed be able to transform the deep state, the CIA, the FBI, which is doing so many things in secret. All those witch hunts they did against him, I thought that he was a bad guy. Now it turns out it was all the Democratic Party going after their political opponent. And they're like, we stand for democracy. Okay, that's another lie. Kamala says we want to save democracy, but how much money did you and your party spend to remove people off the ballot? Okay, very, very evil, totalitarian, anti-democratic move. I'm so angry at that. I stand for democracy, and I get to define what it is. Democracy means I win. I'm going to remove everyone off the ballot. That's what she did. They tried to remove Jill Stein off the ballot. Voters put her on the ballot, but the DNC was like, we can't have any challengers because they're not for democracy. So don't say you're for democracy. Just be honest and say, we want to win, and we'll do whatever it takes to win. At least be honest. They tried to take Donald Trump off the ballot. The Supreme Court struck all this down. Thank God we have a Supreme Court as a checks and balance against these people who lie to us. It remains to be seen what Donald Trump will do with these wars, with the Food and Drug Administration. The Food and Drug Administration, this country has allowed, according to what I heard Bobby Kennedy say on an interview, 1,000 food products that are banned in the European Union. And do you wonder why men's testosterone and sperm count is declining? I think it's their over-civilized lifestyle, and it's the food, and it's a lack of exercise, which all goes back to the Department of Education, which has infiltrated schools with little physical movement and poisonous food. I do not eat genetically modified foods. I've been anti-GMO for decades. Okay, that's why I will not eat corn unless it's organic. I raise my children the same way. A lot of Americans don't even know. They're told it's science, just trust it. I don't know. I'm not going to trust eating corn that has fish DNA in it, okay? It's not the same as a hybrid, but there are a lot of chemicals, the seed oils and so on. They used to tell us that butter is bad, eat margarine, and now we know that was a lie. Like, they've lied to us. I remember reading Silent Spring when I was a teenager. I read Silent Spring, and that had a huge impact on me because it was all about how DDT was ruining life. They were telling us it was so good, and they knew it wasn't, and then it was killing all these fish. The same with thalidomide. Thalidomide was, I read about that as a teenager. This is what made me start to be mistrustful of the medical industry because they were pushing thalidomide for years to help women who had nausea during pregnancy. And it caused children to be born without limbs. And I saw the pictures. But they kept selling the drug anyway. Okay, until it was finally banned. And then we know about Johnson & Johnson, who had aluminum in their baby powder. You know, Americans are much too trusting of these institutions. They need to be cleaned out. There are products that are allowed in this country due to lobbying that are not allowed in Europe, where they actually care more about people. All these agencies need to be cleaned out. So I don't know if the new administration is serious about it, how much they can get done. Even Mitch McConnell, the Republican, he's against all of Trump's, what he wants to do with stopping the wars and cleaning out these agencies. These old goons need to fucking go. Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, Chuck Schumer, Biden, get out. You're past your prime. You have old, stale ideas. You stand for nothing except war and enriching yourselves. We want a country that's for the people. Okay, whether you're a Democrat or Republican or a Green Party or Libertarian Party. And these Democrats have had too much power that has infiltrated our culture in a negative way. And that's why they had to pay all of these people to endorse Kamala Harris, because she stood for nothing. And they stand for nothing. They supported her to get that check. But why did Joe Rogan have Donald Trump on? Because he wants to have a conversation. Why did all these, Tucker Carlson, Elon Musk, why did they go to Trump? Because they're inspired by a message. Whether it turns out to be true or not remains to be seen. But they were inspired by a message of authenticity and something for the people. Whether it was free speech. It seems to me, and it remains to be seen, I could be wrong, that Elon Musk, even though he does ban people on Twitter, sometimes he does. Okay, he gets a little reactive. But there's free speech now allowed on Twitter that was not allowed before. Tucker Carlson, he was kicked out of, was it Fox? Was he on Fox? He got kicked out for true journalism. He went independent. A lot of people have gone independent. Breaking Point is also a good channel. But they're there because of a conviction to free speech, a conviction. I'm sure they're going to get rich. I'm sure Elon Musk is going to get rich with his Starlink and his rockets and his EV cars and government contracts, okay? But at least he stands for something, and I'm a big believer in free speech. We need free speech. We need to be able to have debates, and that's another reason men don't want to go to college. They've become ideological, activist, woke, weak institutions. Because a real adult wants to have a healthy debate and wants to be able to ask questions. One of the things that people always liked about me where I worked, my first job out of college, they kept giving me good reviews because I asked questions. Asking questions shows that you're engaged, that you're thinking, that you care, that you're intelligent. But you were not allowed to ask questions. You were not allowed to ask questions on social media, okay? Because asking questions was considered dangerous. As Hillary Clinton recently said, we need to control what people say, or we lose control. So people want to control you, don't want you to ask questions. They don't want you to have opinions or ideas. But an active, a vibrant institution needs respectful discourse, questions, different ideas. So these universities have become vassals of, where professors have said, I cannot bring this topic to the class. Someone might be offended. We cannot read this book. We cannot have this dialogue. So men don't want to go there to your fucking sissified university where protesters are handcuffed, stifling free speech. Now, they will tell you that it was all angry mobs. The same way as with the January 6th. I believed all of it. Now I'm questioning all of it because apparently Donald Trump wanted the National Guard there and Nancy Pelosi said no. And apparently there were like hundreds of FBI agents there who opened the Capitol doors and allowed everyone in. So it's like, and how come no one is ever still talking about an attempted assassination attempt on a former president? If someone had tried to shoot Obama or Biden, we would still be talking about it. There's all this infiltration of the news. Don't ask questions. We're going to control the dialogue. Men don't want that. Real men don't want that. So what are these men doing? They're staying home and they're playing video games. Because there's nothing out there that they see that makes them feel welcome, makes them feel wanted, that gives them a role model. If they never had a father in the home, if they're autistic, they need extra help. There weren't good male role models in schools. All signs of masculinity and expressing their natural masculine impulses like a Tom Sawyer or a Huckleberry Finn have been thrown out, discarded, and trampled down. And I like Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer. Despite the N-word that's in there, maybe you want to replace that with the word Negro. I don't know. I don't really know. Black people would have to weigh in on this. But those are stories of little boys having a sense of adventure, and a little boy living in an age where black people were disparaged, making friends with a black man. Those stories are now all thrown out. I remember as a child having my little heroes like Pippi Longstocking and the Treehouse Kids, like little kids need these heroes. They tried to take away our heroes and replace them with these lame Disney, Oh, and I could go on into Disney. I took my daughter to see The Lion King when she was 4. And I will tell you, I was horrified as a mother. I'm like, Disney is supposed to be about Bambi, and why did Bambi have to die? But Disney is supposed to be about childhood. I'm from Germany, where childhood is revered, where we play with, we have our nature table, and we play outdoors, and childhood is a time of play. Disney is very violent. That movie was extremely violent, and it was loud in the theater. It was so loud. So I went out to the box office and I said, hey, that's really loud. And I'm in here with a little kid. It's loud for me. It's loud for her. It's scary. You know what they told me? This is the volume at which we are required to play the movie. We are not able to turn down the volume. This is the volume for this movie, The Lion King. They wanted to scare little kids. Why did the dad have to die? Disney has started being evil. And then they have all these false stories of, the Prince Charming myth. Like all this stuff started infiltrating into kids, scaring them. Again, I'm not a fan of Hansel and Gretel either. I think all these fairy tales are pretty evil and scary for kids, just my personal opinion. Pippi Longstocking was so innocent. Tom Sawyer was so innocent. I think they were just kids like, Der Räuber Hotzenplotz. That's a German book I used to read. It was like these little boys trying to find like this robber, and he left a trail of coffee beans. It was pretty innocent. Or Nancy Drew or the Hardy Boys. We used to have these heroes. I don't even know if we have them anymore. The Democrat Party got taken over by these ideologues, and they willingly went along with it because they stand for nothing. And so they deserve to lose, in my opinion. And hopefully we're going to have a complete turnaround in some of these policies that have weakened us as a country. Because the money that we spend on foreign wars that has part of U.S. imperialism and colonialism is much better spent on giving people better education And I would get rid of the Department of Education. Okay. George Bush started it with No Child Left Behind, and I think he meant well, but it was obvious after a few years that it was not working. When my kids were going to school back in the 90s and early 2000s, I kept railing against how bad education was. And my kids went to a very good school district in San Diego, and they went to Montessori early on. Montessori is so much superior, but I was noticing that in this very good school district, which had a GATE program, a lot of parental involvement, the education system was way beneath what I experienced in this country as a young child and what I experienced in Germany. It lacked rigor. It lacked a breadth of subject matters. And over the years, and especially in poor communities, children were, especially in poor schools, you hear on YouTube now all the time about teachers quitting because they're not allowed to enforce any discipline. That's the same as the homeless people. There's no discipline. And you can steal up to $950 worth of goods in California, and you won't go to jail in the name of kindness. We don't want to hurt your feelings. That's all woke agenda run amok. It has increased our crime, decreased our accountability, and not made anyone want to challenge themselves. Challenge yourself. Why? You're not rewarded. The people who don't do the work are rewarded. The kids are passed on to the next grade, even though they haven't mastered anything. They know it. They know it. It shows that you don't believe in this child. This child thinks, I can't do anything. They're passing me on because I can't do anything. You're sending powerful messages to children when you don't require any accountability. Freedom and responsibility go together. You're free to move to the next grade when you have passed the work of this grade. This is all part of the Democratic woke agenda that has infiltrated education. And they took out PE, they took out science, all in the name of No Child Left Behind started focusing on reading and math. So those were the subjects that they were really focusing on, was reading and math. What about science? What about literature? What about history, biology, chemistry, art? Now, in my kids' school, it was the parents that brought this in. We donated money. We had fundraisers so that we could bring in teachers to teach this stuff. And we could have after-school clubs to play chess or to do whatever. And maybe there was a teacher who felt very passionate about exercise for kids, who would have them run around between classes or before school or after school. But that was up to the teacher. And then teachers were very heavily penalized if the kids didn't do well on the standard grade test, which was just a bunch of multiple choice questions, and they disparaged critical thinking. Critical thinking was not allowed. So we've weakened our young people. We've weakened them by requiring so little, just passing them along. That's all the Democratic agenda. They're running the education system. And I used to work for a company that consulted for school districts. So I was exposed to some of the people who are part of this. They all believe in this agenda. And then the therapists. I have friends who are therapists. They believe in supporting trans people. You're supporting mentally ill people to tell them their delusions are real. I remember I took a bunch of courses from Terry Real, who is helps couples on the brink of divorce. And in one of the Facebook groups, I had a question because I was really struggling at the time, this was like 3 years ago, of why men aren't asking women out, why men have checked out. So I made a post asking, I'm like, these therapists are going to know what happened to men. Why are men so feminized? They're not asking women out anymore. And I got hit with a barrage of anger that I was so, how could I ever work with people if I'm so judgmental, and men can be however they got super mad at me. It was very upsetting to me because I was just wondering what happened to our society. And they're like, well, this is just how it is. You should accept people how they are and help them, or this is how men are. I don't even remember. I left the Facebook group. I don't want anything more to do with Terry Real or his stuff, because he also looks very feminized. So does John Gray, the Mars and Venus guy, very feminized. Guys, if you're carrying around a bunch of body fat, you're too feminized. Your estrogen is turning me off. Too much estrogen in the room. Okay? You need to get out there and get out in the wilderness. Learn to make a campfire. Get out in the wilderness with your buddies. Backpack for a few days. Learn how to be a man, okay? That's what a man does. You're too civilized. You've over-civilized yourself. You're a domesticated version of a man. And you're not attractive. And you don't feel attractive. That's why you've checked out. Society has domesticated you, the domesticated man. Anyway, so they're for the woke agenda, and they're pushing it. They think it's normal. If a schizophrenic person comes to me and says, I'm being followed by Goldfinger, I'm not going to tell him, yeah, that must be really tough for you. Let's get you, a safe place to hide. I'm not going to say that. So the Department of Education, with their whole, ideology, their woke agenda, sexualizing kids. Kids do not need to learn about sex education. They do not need to see twerking. Like, this is just, don't bring your freak fetish show to the children. Leave the children alone. This is why the Democratic Party lost, because not only did they abandon the working class, but they got infiltrated with these mentally ill people, the people that are having a meltdown because Trump won. Okay, it's not the end of democracy, because the Democrats tried to stop democracy. They impeached Trump twice. They made up the fake Russia hoax. They tried to create all these felonies, which were none. Most of the claims for him were all made up, which I now see. And they tried to kick him off the ballot. They tried to assassinate him. But they stand for democracy. You're mentally ill right now if you think I'm going to believe that. And they believe their own stuff. And the Democrats have been radicalized by these rich people like Oprah, Beyonce, or whoever. I don't mean to call out Beyonce, but Oprah for sure. She was best friends with Harvey Weinstein and Sean Diddy and all these pedophiles. She's never been married. She's not a mother. Very suspect women who are never want children, never get married. Very suspect. You're not a real woman. Okay? There's something wrong with you up here. In my opinion. You can disagree, but the comments are off. So I won't know. But you can buy me a coffee and send me a message. I will read it. Okay? And these people have this agenda about, they hate their gender. They were sexually molested as children, I don't know. And they have a powerful platform because they have money. And people idolize these people. Thank God the Kardashians are not promoting anyone, because they're also very deranged. But these people have taken over and tried to normalize deviant human behavior. They've tried to normalize weakening men, making women superior to men, making these angry women, turning men into women, women into men. Nobody should have children. We're going to fight these wars. It's okay, because it's your boys who are going to war. It's not our boys. We have money. We would never send our boys to war. I told my sons, don't ever enlist in the military. You don't have to. Okay? You don't have to. Because you have options. You can go to college. You can start a business. Because the military was fighting senseless wars in Afghanistan and Iraq that we had no business fighting. Why would you want to join that? We're not defending anything. That's another reason men are checked out. They realize that this country is using their strength and their masculinity and trashing it. Abusing men. That's what they do. They're abusing men. That's what the Democrats do. They abuse men. They tell them that they're not needed. They have taken away the jobs that men do. They try to weaken them in the education system. They try to tell them that they're not needed, that men can be women and women can be men. It's bad. That's why they lost. People can feel something is off. I'm just surprised that Kamala got as many votes as she did, because she stands for nothing except these ideologues who want to transform everybody's gender and make people childless. And I'm in liberal California, where it's really the worst. It's the worst. But I like the weather, so I stay. But that's my little rant. Now, for me to go more into this, I've been meaning, and I promised you guys to do videos on this book, That Therapy. This is going to be reversed, okay? So this will show up reversed, but Bad Therapy, Why the Kids Aren't Growing Up by Abigail Schreier. Came across her book on a Joe Rogan interview about a year ago. I did read the book, and I promised to make a video about it, which I'm going to do. And this also ties into, and after I do the video on this book, I may be more in a position to talk about how the woke agenda infiltrated our culture, not just in education, but everywhere, and has led to a lot of the current problems we have with men checking out of society and people not wanting to have kids, and like this unease in our country. Because, and now this woman wrote, her first book is called Irreversible Damage. That was about the mental health industry that's harming, not healing children, because they're promoting this trans agenda. I want to say one more thing. There are actual trans people, which are like 0.005% of the population. Like, it's very, very rare. There are also people who are bigender, which means they have an extra chromosome, okay? Or people whose sex organs didn't fully develop, like that boxer, that male boxer that won, because he didn't fully develop his penis. Something went wrong, so he has like a micro penis, which just looks like an enlarged clitoris. But he doesn't have a penis, so he thought he's a female. I don't know if he has breasts. I don't think he has breasts. But he thought he was a female because he didn't have a penis. But he has XY chromosomes. So we see these kind of, aberrations in nature. They're really rare. You can have people who are XXY, or is it XYY? I don't remember. And they have, these are some aberrations. They're extremely rare. So is being trans. These things are very rare. But this whole movement of teenagers thinking they're in the wrong body, or celebrities with 3 toddlers all thinking that they're trans, that's delusion, and that's mental instability. That's a mental health issue run amok. And this has been encouraged. These celebrities are encouraging their kids to be trans and to be confused about their gender, like it's some kind of a woke, cool thing. These people have infiltrated the party in Hollywood and the education system. The extreme left has infiltrated everything. And this is this is not a normal part of society. They're creating this. And young people are very vulnerable to being told this. They're very vulnerable. And all these young people discovering that they're not in the right body, they're brainwashed into this. They're programmed into this by really unhealthy adults. And a lot of people are turned off by this. Rightly so. It's just weird. You're sick in the head. Okay? You guys need help right now. And Hollywood is sick in the head. I can't even tell you the last time I watched a movie. The movies for the last 20 years have just gotten so bad That's why I kept thinking when my book, The Fuck List, came out, this would make a great movie, because it's actually a real story about a woman grappling with her marriage, something everyone can relate to. A woman grappling with her marriage, her bad sex life, like you could make a great movie out of that. But no, their movies are just so boring. Virtue signaling and all the DEI hires, don't even get me started. That's how Boeing went down, DEI hires. That's the government or someone started requiring DEI hiring, DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. We're going to put you in this position just because you're not white, just because you're not a man. And they start weakening our institutions. You want to help people you want to help women or you want to help non-white people, you start with the education system. And there have been some very good schools I read about over the years that were like in Harlem that had incredible teachers and devoted parents and good student turnout. They had to wear uniforms, they were held accountable, there were strict rules, standards, and boundaries, and these kids stepped up to the plate and they excelled. That's how you do it. You do parenting classes. You help people at the core. You give them resources with strings attached. You empower them. And a certain percentage of people will take advantage of that and you will rise them up. That's how you do it. Not by putting weak people into important positions, because you're weakening everyone. And then the strong people get discouraged. They don't even want to try. And if the price of getting this job is just because of how you look, what does that do? That's how the Democratic Party weakened us, and we let it. But we didn't know why. It was just this thing in the water, this thing in the culture. But some of these people are calling it out. I'm calling it out right now. You stood for nothing except for transsexual ideology, diversity, equity, inclusion of weak people. You stood for weakness. That's what you stood for. You virtue signaled by, okay, the Democratic Party, instead of standing and encouraging courage and strength and ambition and resilience and keeping your word and standing for something and being accountable and going on TV and saying, this is why we're in these wars, this is what we're doing, this is why the CIA is secretive. They stand for nothing, they hide behind everything, and then they promote weakness with their weakened education system, their DEI programs, trying to turn men into women and women into men, harming our children, abandoning the working class, because the rich people that are their donors, they already have money. If you're a rich person who has money like Oprah, you don't care about the working class. You have an agenda. George Soros, Bill Gates, they have agendas. They want to push ideologies. And these people were allowed into the party, and that's their downfall, because they stood for nothing except for perverted ideologies of the mentally ill. And I consider Oprah mentally ill. She stands for nothing except pedophilia and hanging around with these celebrities. So does Obama. Stands for nothing. He was just standing up there talking, giving his talking points, standing for nothing. He did more to racially divide the black men, the black people. He divided people even more. And that's what they want to do, because then they can stand on something for their next election. That's why they lost. And the Republicans tried to kick out every populist party. They squashed down the Tea Party. They tried to get Trump out of power, but they couldn't. And they're still trying to get Trump out of power. The Republicans are still trying to get Trump out of power because he goes against their rich elitist agenda of warmongering and secret CIA and FBI operations and keeping themselves in power, because he actually wants to shake things up. And nobody wants that, but at least the Republican Party made a little opening in the door for him to get in, because they still allowed free elections. Whereas the Democrats were like, they kicked Bernie Sanders out. He had to step down. And he's a coward for not coming out and saying, they forced me out. Here's what he should have done. They forced me out, and now I'm going to rail against this system. But he didn't. He was a good old weak little boy who wanted to keep his post, So he stood down and he joined the bad people. Bernie Sanders, you're a coward. And now after the election, you're coming out and you're saying the Democratic lost because they left the people. Now you're saying that? You're a little too late, buddy. That's like Zuckerberg saying, I only censored free speech because they made me. You're a little too late. Okay? You stand for nothing. You're a sellout. Bernie Sanders, you're a sellout. But they took Obama or whoever it was, made him step down in 2016. It's Hillary's turn. Step aside. Hillary, our warmonger, the insider, but she lost to Trump because everyone was sick of Obama and his bullshit. And then in 2020, Biden got in. I think it was Hillary's turn or Gavin Newsom's turn. I don't know. But they put Biden in. This old decrepit guy who should be out lounging on the beach. That's the best you can do. You thought that because you lost your way. And you gaslit people into thinking that Trump was this autocrat because you used all your power in the media to disparage him, and all your power that you had in Congress to disparage him, paint all these false accusations. You came up with the Russiagate lie, and you lied to us, the people, that he was an asset of Putin to try to weaken Russia and weaken him and make sure that the US could never get along with Russia. Why? How does that benefit us to have Russia as the enemy when Russia wants to be friends with us and we keep lying to them? I'm so sick of these people. And the Republic, all of the whole news thing, I'm so sick of all of it. I really hope that Trump can change things like he promised. And the only reason I have hope is because people I really respect, Bobby Kennedy, Tulsi Gabbard, Tucker Carlson, have joined his team. They're Democrats. The Democratic Party didn't even want them. I don't know, is anyone still watching my video? I'm just like, I'm not done. I have more to say. The Democrat Party didn't want them, so they went to the Republicans. That's kind of weird. That gives me hope. But they're still, the Republicans are still trying to get rid of him. The good old boys, the insiders, get the fuck out. We've had it with you. We need new blood. We need good people. And some of these people now that are on Trump's team, and Vivek Ramaswamy, some of these people, they're not only younger people. I'm not saying it's better because they're younger, but they have fresh ideas for investing in our country, stopping these wars, and actually speaking the truth. Free speech is speaking the truth, because you're not, some of these ideologues that have been in there for decades, they're all lying to us. You think Nancy Pelosi has the power to give free speech, but she won't, because she sold her soul to this bureaucracy like Bernie Sanders. They're all sellouts. Get rid of the sellouts. I want them all gone. Get rid of the sellouts. Get rid of the mentally unwell people who want to change men into women and bring men into women's sports, who are doing all their pedophilia in Hollywood and their DEI stuff and sending our young men into war. Get them all out. That's why they lost, because they stood for nothing and they were trying to weaken us, and they were stuck in their own little bubble thinking that, well, we have money and now we're going to turn men into women and women into men. That makes us cool. And of course, everyone will want that too. No, we don't. That's why you lost. And as the reason that I got sick of the Democrats is because they constantly lie. Rachel Maddow, I used to think you were hot. You sold out. You're a vacuous, not a Black Widow, because you're not hot anymore. See, when people lie so much, I saw Obama lecturing to the black men. He's a pathetic, hollowed out figure. So is Rachel Maddow. So is Joy Reid. I used to watch her show. She was so good at one point. When you spend your whole life, you spend years lying and selling your soul, you become vacuous because you stand for nothing. And that's why Kamala Harris couldn't inspire people, because there's nothing in here. Vacuous, they stand for nothing. That's why they lost. They sold their soul, they stand for nothing, and they're promoting perverted agendas of the mentally ill. They're mentally ill. They're sick in the head. Okay? That's why they lost. I think people like Oprah and all these Hollywood people and all these rich donors, they need to spend like 3 months living in Appalachia, living with the people, working there, going out in the wilderness, making a campfire, getting into nature, losing their identity of their hollowed out nothingness, to feel something again, to feel something, to have some empathy, to actually work with their hands, to actually struggle at something, to find some real meaning. They need to find some real meaning because they have none. Other than, I want money, I want power, and I want to pal around with rich celebrities. Because when you sell out your soul, you look vacuous, and people can feel that. And the vacuous people voted for the Democrats. The people pleasers and the vacuous people. And look at the men. And I'm putting that in quote. Doug Emhoff does not look like a man. He's sissified. And Tim Walz. These are not men. So you lost men when you bring out these sissified guys. I'm just about done now with this video. I am done now with this video. This is all I really wanted to say. I've been kind of mulling this over, mulling these ideas over for the past few days. I took some notes based on videos I made. I was going to, incorporate those. Maybe I'll do that now. One moment. Okay, so I'm going to just read to you what they were saying in these clips, and I will put the videos in the description just to save myself some time. The first one is from Kim Iversen, where she talks like a day after the election. I think she's wearing black to show she's grieving. And she talks about that the Democrats lied to us for 8 years. That's why they lost. She talks about the witch hunts for the racists. They turn people in if they're being racist. The censorship and the Cambridge Analytica Russia hoax where they went after Trump. That was a lie. How the Me Too movement went too far. The Democrats started to go after Trump in 2016. They went after the conservatives, anyone who was anti-war. They tried to collapse his presidency, and how they amped up the lockdown in blue states and perpetuate the pandemic. And as you remember, Nancy Pelosi and Gavin Newsom were not scared of the virus at all because they were out in public having parties. It was fear and control. Never forget. They gaslit us with the economy. They told us the economy is good, that Biden is healthy. Okay? On the podium of the White House, and all the media, they gaslit us. The economy is good, Biden is healthy. They told us the Hunter Biden laptop story was false. We now know it's true. They told us that COVID, if we don't get the injection, we're a grandma killer. That was a lie. They tarnished people listening to independent media like Joe Rogan. They told us we were all bad. They claimed that they're saving democracy, and then they installed Kamala Harris. There was nothing democratic about it. They kept going after Trump. They tried to take other people off the ballot, and they had an assassination attempt against Trump. So that's what the Democrats did, and that's how they lied to us. The other video will be from Vince Ellison. He talks about, he starts out going like, I'm so sick of Barack Obama. He's really good. He's really good. He talks about how Barack Obama started the racial strife with the Trayvon Martin case, the Black Lives Matter, and how he had thug rappers come to the White House, ghetto rappers, and all the fake charges on Trump. Then he also talks about Big Mike. His video is called Obama and Big Mike, a love story. which I thought was hilarious. But I remember those ghetto rappers coming to the White House. That's another way that they infiltrated and tried to take actual core values. And I'm not talking about sexual prudity, I'm talking about respect. When Obama invited those rappers to the White House, I was shocked. Not only is their English very poor, which is dumbing down education, dumbing down language, they showed no respect for the law. They talk about shooting people and killing people and raping women like they were so criminals. They're talking about criminal activity in their songs, and they were very low class, in my opinion, trash. I talk about white trash, these are black trash. He brought them into the White House. I remember being shocked. But then Kamala Harris had Megan Thee Stallion, which I've never watched her. I find her extremely gross, no class, twerking as part of her presidential campaign. Like, you guys look like you're peddling. I don't know what you're peddling. Okay, so I'm going to put those two clips at the end because they will explain how the Democratic Party went amok. Instead of uniting people, they start dividing them racially, sexually, family. Just divide, divide, divide. They start hating men. Men are supposed to be the providers and the protectors, and they want to be the explorers, the adventurers, the providers, the protectors. But Obama brought in the gangsters, and he divided people, and he did nothing for the black people. That's what the black journalists I listen to on YouTube are saying. He did nothing for the black people. So that's going to wrap up my video. Thank you so much for watching. And when I'm back, I will be making videos about that book, because that really goes to the heart of a lot of what's gone wrong in this country, this feel-good movement. Okay, that's going to answer a lot of stuff. Thank you for watching, and have a great day. If you're still here at the end, thank you. And you can also buy me a coffee if you like my channel.